Not gonna lie, Hellboy the Crooked Man came out of nowhere and it also went nowhere. Before I give you my opinion on this version, I have to admit that I never read any Hellboy comic book. I, like many others, learned about Hellboy being a thing from Guillermo del Toro movies, and I remember being aware that those movies were not based on any comic book at all, but I did not care. I will also completely ignore the existence of the Stranger Things guy Hellboy reboot, as it was pure trash apart from that one dragon riding scene. So let's begin. Hellboy the Crooked Man is a straight-up horror movie based on a comic book, and you can feel the director's intentions in getting the horror atmosphere in every single frame. Intentions of getting it is the main problem, but more on that later. The movie takes place in the 1950s, with the setting being old woods and rural southern United States, something like Wild West or simply hillbillies or rednecks. The scope of Hellboy the Crooked Man is really small, really intimate, closed, claustrophobic spaces like mines, old houses and dark woods. Even the enemies are smaller in scope, at least compared to previous installments. This movie is about witches and the Crooked Man. This is a small, atmospheric comic book-based horror movie, which all of the previous Hellboy movies were not. They were just simple blockbuster action flicks, and Hellboy is not that. Hellboy should not be that. As I mentioned, this movie is set in the 1950s and starts off showing Hellboy as the first thing we see. It doesn't hide him or make him appear from the shadows menacingly. He is just there as any other person would be. And this is something that is prominent throughout the entire movie. This Hellboy is the most human Hellboy we ever had. He doesn't scream at the camera, "I'm a monster!" or blames humans for having to hide himself. He doesn't hide himself at all. For most of the movie, he doesn't even do much. He is not proactive. He reacts to what is happening only when he has to act. And it's not like he is forced to. What he does is he lets other people fight their own battles, and he steps up only when they gave all they had and can't fight anymore. This is a very human Hellboy, and I like him a lot. But there are problems, big problems. In the first 3 minutes of the movie, you will understand everything that is wrong with it. From really lackluster CGI to very wrong battle sequences. All of them, and many other scenes in the movie, are directed like that fence jumping sequence from Taken. I would simply call them unwatchable, and every time there was an action sequence, the score of the movie dropped by 1 point in my head. And the second really big problem is that this movie feels like extended episode of a low-budget horror-oriented TV show like Supernatural. It is so bad that it really is comparable to Supernatural. You might ask, why didn't you say all of this at the very beginning and spare us watching this video? My answer is that I truly believe that this movie is actually worth watching, just for the story if not for anything else, which I will not talk about as it's the only thing that this movie has, so I don't want to spoil anything. This is Hellboy at its visually meh, but story-wise best. If you choose to watch this movie, be prepared to be somewhat disappointed but also positively surprised. I give it a 5.5 out of 10.